Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. In this episode, we're going to take a really deep dive into therapists and coaches. I think this is our third episode, maybe our fourth episode on this topic, but they've been short and very specific to a particular point. In this episode, we're going to have a little longer conversation. We're going to first look at therapists and how they can contribute to estrangement. In other words, reinforcing estrangement, creating a deeper divide, and really contributing to the separation. We're also going to look at how they can support people during estrangement. In particular, we're going to talk about adult children and how they can really be of benefit. And then we're going to do, in fairness, the coaches. We're going to look at how they can contribute to an estrangement, reinforcing the separation and reducing the possibility of a reconciliation, and how they can really be proactive, constructive, helpful, and make a great difference in a movement either away from complete no contact, or how we can slow down the advance and really get a hold of the relationship to rebuild trust and create some mutual respectful boundaries. So with the therapist, we're going to start with how they can contribute to the estrangement. The first one is by over-identifying with the child. We've got a few things going against us with our therapists right now in estrangement. For one thing, the general population of therapists tend to be the same age as our estranging adult children. So there's a lot of identification, a lot of personal similarity between the therapeutic community right now and the population who is estranging or is estranged from their parents. They can't, if they get too close, if they get too identified with the client, they can start identifying with their clients' grievances, encouraging that separation and reducing the likelihood that they're going to give grace and try to communicate differently with their parents. What we hope the therapist will do is look at both the adult child and the parents' perspectives. When they over-identify, they don't do that. They don't spend enough time really playing that devil's advocate and things like, I wonder how that felt to your parents. I wonder what might have been on their minds when that happened. Are there other things that might have contributed? There's very little of that. The second way therapists can reinforce or strengthen an estrangement is by siding with or by supporting the no contact stance, actually encouraging their client to distance themselves from their parent. They might actually encourage cutting ties prematurely because they're not looking beyond that simple conversation in that 50 minutes that they spend and not digging a little deeper, thinking and challenging their client to consider other options. The third way that they might contribute is by failing to encourage their client to repair, making amends themselves, saying they're sorry, asking one last time, please can we talk about this? They may rush to judgment themselves, and so they don't take that time to really encourage the repair. They may overemphasize the family dynamics over individual growth. So I call it free choice, the freedom to decide who we are and how we identify ourselves and really make our own choices. So we all grow up to some degree with messed up childhoods, right? I mean, who doesn't have stuff in their background? We get to decide if we latch on to that and how long we carry that with us, how long we let that impact our current and future relationships. Therapists can also reinforce the victimhood, or they can perpetuate the anger. Remind them, well, remember, you were really upset about that. That was really a problem for you. Instead of approaching it from more of a perspective of, wow, that's really a different position. You must have come to some new realizations. Have you processed that more? And really looking at that and seeing what the differences are and giving that client the opportunity to embrace change. Perpetuating anger comes when they emphasize injustice. Wow, your parents, man, they really did mess you up on that. Wow, that was so unfair. Here's an example. When our daughter came back to us, she was talking about trauma and how she had worked with her therapist about family trauma. And, like many of you, we were so surprised. We weren't aware of any trauma in the sense of our generation's definition and understanding of trauma. Now, today's generation sees and defines trauma differently. Nonetheless, we asked her, curious, right? Curiosity is our friend. Tell us more about that. Tell us, do you have some examples you could share with us? Or what examples did you share with your therapist? And the example that she shared with us was that when she was younger, maybe middle school, when she would slam her bedroom door, and we would ask, please don't, wasn't really a question, please don't slam your door, close your door. We're happy to have you close your door, that's fine, but there's no need or benefit to slamming the door. The second time, we might make a stronger statement, stop slamming the door. And the third time, we would take the door off the hinges. And that was the trauma. The door came off the hinges. Now she has her own 7-year-old children, twin boys, and when they slam a door, man, she looks at those hinges. I can see her looking at that door. And, we kind of chuckle about it now. At the time, though, when she was working with her therapist, it was a trauma for her. She had to work through that and get past it and decide whether she was going to hold on to that as trauma or see it as a parenting technique that didn't land well for her. It didn't make the point we were hoping to make. Now, let's look at some ways that therapists can alleviate or heal estrangement. They can be contributing constructively toward repair and reconciliation. Therapists can encourage empathy and they can encourage understanding. We love that when a good therapist encourages us to consider different perspectives, see things from different people's angle, through other people's lenses, consider what was going on with the other person at the time of the interaction, whatever was going on. This can really help any of us, whether it's the adult child or the parent, to see the other person's source of pain. We can consider their struggles and the other potential reasons for their behavior. So it gives us a chance to, in a safe environment, out of the emotional intensity of the original interaction, gives us a chance to take a breath and reconsider. We love it when therapists help us reframe the relationship. So maybe we've been looking at the relationship as something that was permanently damaged. The damage is done. We cannot recover. The state that things are in today will be the state they always are in. It's not unusual for an adult child when they cut ties, when they step away, that they speak in extremes. I never want to talk to you again. Do not ever contact me again. If you ever come close to me again, I will call the police. There are these extremes, and we hear and feel them as parents incredibly personally, intensely. Those are breathtaking moments, and the world crumbles because what if it's true? So our therapists can help both our adult children temper that. Do you really believe that is forever? Do you think there's any chance that might change for you? What would it take for you to reconsider that? Same for parents. Parents, when we say, don't ever ask me for money again, well, if the right circumstances came up, you might reconsider that statement. I certainly have said that to my adult children. Look, the faucet's turned off. We feel like you're old enough and you're independent enough, you have a career, you can manage your income, and really you probably don't need to come back to us. However, in the right circumstances, I'm at the front of the line to say, can we help you? Is there something we can do to support you? Do you need some money? I'm the first one to do that. Now, adult children see that as golden handcuffs. That isn't necessarily a welcomed invitation. So I'm just using these things as examples for you of how reframing the relationship in a particular situation can be really helpful when a therapist uses that technique. So another way therapists can be very helpful is in defining boundaries. What is a boundary? What's a healthy boundary? What's a punitive boundary? What's a retaliatory boundary? What boundary is necessary to take care of a particular concern? How do we communicate our boundaries? How can we define our boundaries and feel confident enough to communicate those? And then the work gets handed off to the coach to strategize, practice, role play, and then deliver the boundary. There's a gray area in what we think therapists and coaches do regarding communication. Communication is kind of my deal. I've spent many years studying and training and working with people to strengthen and understand communication. My own doctoral research focused on communication in medical teams and how do physicians and nurses and social workers in particular communicate to make sure we, the patient, are getting the best care. Same with families. How do we communicate in a way that others can hear, we can deliver our message, and the communication is aligned and effective? Now, therapists also do some facilitation of communication strategies. They tend to look more at non-confrontational communication, tempering emotions, maintaining emotional equilibrium. They're still focused on that emotional element and how it impacts communication. Another way therapists can be very helpful in estrangement is by addressing both each client's individual growth and how that contributes to family healing. How do you take that back to the family unit and demonstrate your growth and return in a healthier way so that you are ready to be resilient, to be yourself in the face of communication and behavior that you know is not beneficial to you. It's not healthy. It's not welcome. So how do you hold on to your self-worth? Or how does our adult child come back to us, hold on to their new perspective, their new sense of self-worth, and still engage and communicate with us? Our therapists are excellent at helping with personal healing and our healing from past wounds and letting go. That's forgiveness, right? Forgiveness isn't necessarily saying, I absolve you of your poor behavior, or I absolve you of how you hurt me. It's really coming to a point where you can say, yeah, this was bad. It hurt me. I'm wounded. I've healed my wound. And now I want you to know I've moved on. I'm not carrying that with me anymore. I forgive you in the sense that I'm letting go. We are not saying you didn't do it. We are not giving them absolution or get out of jail free card. We're acknowledging the hurt. We're holding the hurt in the sense that we recognize it, and then we choose to let it go. That is that restoring family dynamics. When our daughter came back to us, she acknowledged her dad and I processed estrangement very differently. We navigated through that estrangement very differently. I was all about what can I learn about this? What can I learn about myself? What can I do differently in the future that does not push my daughter away? It doesn't mean I need to change who I am. It means I need to change how I interact with her, how I communicate. He had a different approach. I'll let him speak to that someday when he's ready. When she came back, what she said about that was, I've learned, Mom, that I can only expect as much as the other person can offer. Expecting more than that from them is an absolute failure for both of us. They can't contribute differently, and I'm not going to get my needs met. I have to get my needs met somewhere else beyond what that person can do. And that's how she makes sense of the difference in where my husband and I came out on the end of this separation for 3 years. So 2 or 3 years. It was really 11 years of breaking a relationship and the crumbling of our relationship. It was really somewhere between 2 and 3 years of silence. So I love that. I love that she said that. I love that she owned it. And it was such a relief to know I didn't have to worry about him anymore and whether he was going to say or do things inadvertently without intention that would take us back to an estrangement, that I wouldn't do the same thing, that I wouldn't, without thinking, without recognizing, get us right back to where we were, and that I needed to accept her for who she was. She wasn't going to be the person I dreamt of when she was born. She chose different goals in life. She chose a different trajectory, and it's her life. She gets to do that. I need to let go of that. That is part of what therapy can do for us. Therapists, again, encourage forgiveness and the release of anger, letting go of our emotional baggage. First, we have to see it, know it, taste it, feel it, and really dig into that baggage and figure out what it is so we know what we're letting go of, or it sneaks up and it bites us. So if you work with me, you've heard me say, what stays in the dark grows in the dark. We have to bring out those ugly things, shine light on them, look at them, own what part we have to, forgive the part that other people may have brought to the problem, and then let go and move on. Doesn't mean they need to be included in our life anymore, these people. Doesn't mean that we are going to go out to lunch with them every Wednesday. It simply means we are going to let go of that baggage. And lastly, what therapists can do for us is they empower us to make informed decisions, consider options, look for resources, learn about a situation. A great example of this is the vocabulary that our adult children are using today in estrangement. Trauma today is not how we defined and understood trauma when I was 30 years younger. It's a different thing. It's become pedestrian. It's become sort of a watered down version of hurt feelings and slights and disrespect and not being listened to. There are all kinds of ways to understand trauma today. When I was younger, trauma was the loss of a leg. Trauma was rape. Trauma was critical car accident where you lost your mobility. It's a very different thing now, and we need to understand that. We need to make informed decisions. So if your adult child is saying to you, I was traumatized and abused in my childhood. Wait a minute and do some research. What are they saying? Ask them questions. Give us examples. Help me understand what you're talking about. Don't deny it. You don't need to push back. You don't need to go to, how could you dare say that to me? Because it's a different language. So that is one thing that therapists and really coaches can help us with as well. So now let's look at coaches. Again, I told you this was going to be a longer episode, so if you need to pause here and come back and listen later, this would be a good place to stop. Okay, so coaches. How can coaches complicate or contribute to the recovery from estrangement? Coaches can reinforce the decision to sever ties without exploration. We can encourage extreme boundaries. I had a dad say to me recently, our son was dealing with addiction. He was incredibly abusive verbally. We were not comfortable with him in our home any longer, and so we kicked him out. We said, don't come back. Don't come back until you are sober. You've been through treatment and you are well on your path to a consistent, maintained sobriety. He said, and now we're kind of regretting that decision because we haven't seen him, we haven't heard him, we don't know where he is, and we don't want him out there alone. So we talked about that for a while, and instead of encouraging him to hold steady, hold to it, you can't change your mind now, which coaches can do. What we talked about was, how do you hold the boundary of safety in your home, self-respect, and not allowing abusive language, and letting your adult son know that you will walk beside him through treatment. You will be his biggest cheerleader as he's working towards sobriety, not in your home, not where you're exposed to that behavior. That stays true. That stays solid. Where can you meet him outside your home to assist? It's softening some of the boundaries so that we're not causing more damage and strengthening the estrangement. That black and white thinking, either or. I've heard a very prominent therapist say regularly, in fact, it was highlighted on Jimmy Kimmel one night, yep, you can say to your adult child, it's my way or the highway. Now, he will go on to say, you can do that. There are consequences. And here are the consequences I suspect may come your way. So it's really endorsing and recognizing you do have the choice, and parents can choose that. It's not what I would coach people to do. If they were intent on taking that approach, I might talk about, if these are the consequences, what's your backup plan? How do you keep yourself from getting painted in such a corner that you can't recover and repair? I like to use the term keep the light on, keep the door open. How do you hold your boundaries to your own needs and self-respect? And also make sure your adult child knows they are welcome in your life to whatever degree you are able and willing to offer. Okay, another way coaches can cause trouble is by oversimplifying the problem. Estrangement's a deal. Our adult children mean it. When they say, don't call me again, they mean stop calling me. Stop it. Stop it now. If you continue, there will be further consequences. By the time people find me, typically, they are already at a point where their adult child has attempted on several occasions to get their parents to listen to them. And the parent doesn't hear it, doesn't understand it, doesn't believe it. It's that first stage of grief, that denial, that disbelief that this can't be happening. Surely this is just a bad day. We can oversimplify that. I said to a client the other day, they were really feeling the intensity of their adult child, saying to them, don't call me anymore. Do not text me anymore. I will let you know if I want to talk to you. The sky was falling. And I said to them, let's keep this in perspective and let's keep the wheels on. And remember, to some degree, this is a bit of a temper tantrum. Now, I wasn't minimizing what the adult child was saying. I simply was saying, this is a moment in time. They are angry. You didn't listen. And this is the consequence. You don't get to talk to them for a while. And if you don't honor that request, it is extended. The time is expanded. The penalty is increased. So coaches can, if they don't go that extra mile to explain and help understand, they can overly simplify and not respect the depth of the pain and hurt that adult child is feeling. We can, as coaches, perpetuate that victim mentality, that perpetuate the resentment, reinforce the anger stage. You're darn right you're mad. Of course you're mad. You've spent your whole life paying for and protecting and supporting your adult child. And who are they to say that that doesn't matter anymore? They don't owe you anything. Well, we can reinforce that, or we can help understand that. We can share the perspective of the adult child, and we can help the parent neutralize some of that intense emotional response and move through that emotion, through process. And at that point, we might encourage a therapist to work on that emotional stuff and then move into an acceptance of the circumstances. So there's a level-headed and well-thought-out strategy to navigate this. We can, as coaches, push too quickly for a quick fix, push too quickly for immediate solutions. So one of the strategies I use to avoid that is to break things down into bite-sized bits. Okay, so what did that text say? Let's see. What could the responses have been to that particular text? Would they have led to a different outcome, or might they have led in a different direction? Let's think this through and kind of spitball, if you will, and look at the different options. And then as we break those things down, you can start to see where you can get a foothold and start changing your reaction as a parent to the adult child's reaction. And in return, by changing that dance step, it gives the adult child room to change their response, to start to listen to you differently, to start to begin to trust you again. We can help create balance between a connection and independence. There's some posts out on the Facebook page and on the website that differentiate between differentiating, which is what young adults do from their parents. They start moving away, start making their own decisions. They start trying decisions without their parents, and maybe they go well and maybe they don't go so well. And then if they're still young and their parents are still engaged, then the parents can help them process that, right? That's a healthy and normal process. That's independence with connection. That's different than cutting ties, stomping away, slamming the door and saying, never talk to me again. If it's an emotional outburst from the child, maybe emerging adult, young adult, that's different than a 30, 40-year-old adult child who's saying, don't ever call me again, right? Different circumstances. So we can sort through some of that and look at the differences. We can begin to, now we're into some of the strengths. What can coaches do to be constructive and help discourage or diffuse the movement toward full estrangement? We can look for emotional growth and self-reflection. How do I look when I'm mad? I worked with a physician recently who, when he was apologizing, he shrugged. Didn't even know he was shrugging. And the shrug was discounting the apology, and he could not understand why people were saying he wasn't apologizing when he was. For him, he was apologizing. For them, what they were seeing was kind of a halfway apology and a dismissal of their feelings. Those things matter. So we can work on looking at that self-reflection. How am I coming across? What triggers me? What am I doing that triggers them? How can we change our dance step, our approach, our interactions so that we are sincere? I talked to a mom recently who was saying she sent these loving texts to her adult child. Her adult child was receiving them not as long, loving texts. And by the way, if you're thinking, is she talking about me? I could be, but I hear this so regularly, I'm probably talking about 10 or 20 of you out there. Those long texts feel like weight and obligation. They feel like they're needy, like I miss you can be interpreted as you're not spending enough time with me. How dare you cancel lunch? They have all of these other messages in their head that have accumulated over time that get jumbled up into that text. You may genuinely miss them. You may want them to know that you love spending time with them and you're just really grateful for the time they can offer. And you understand and respect the fact that they don't have the time that they used to have. So how do you communicate that in a way that doesn't come with the weight and baggage, the obligation, the guilt? Moms, we are so good at issuing guilt that we don't even know we're doing it half of the time anymore. It's become a really strong parenting tool that we've used. And now we have to diffuse that. We have to let go of that. We have to own it, look at it, recognize it, and stop it. We've looked at a number of different ways therapists can contribute to or help in estrangement circumstances. Same with coaches, ways coaches can complicate estrangement, and ways we can change the narrative from being a victim of misbehaving, ungrateful, crazy adult child to one of empowerment, where we can start saying, wait a minute, we can do this differently. We can understand this differently. We can move through this in a way where we are all feeling more heard, more respected, and we build the trust. So I'm going to close this out. I know it's been a long one. Listen to it again, break it down, and send questions. I'd love to get your feedback. Were there places I misspoke or I confused you? Were there things I didn't say that you thought I might? Were there things I said that you thought, what is she talking about? I want that feedback from you, please. Email me at janet@jesteinkamp.com or hop over to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away website and leave me a note, send me a message. I do get them. They come to my computer. I respond to all of this. We have 2 new services you might be interested in. We started a YouTube channel, and we're hosting or posting live interviews, recorded, but live interviews, and on topics related to estrangement with different experts, people who have experienced estrangement, survived it, initiated it, perpetuated it, found their way through it, all different perspectives. And then we have another interview out there right now from Meredith Gordon, or with Meredith Gordon. She's the author of a book about how we raise and foster overly dependent adult children. And then when we start creating boundaries, they cut ties. They're mad. We took away their safety net. We've cut them off. So how do we navigate that without leading to estrangement? And then we've started on Facebook a family or a parenting conversation group. It's a private group. This is not going to be thousands of people who throw out their problems and wait to hear everybody's response. This is generated conversation based on questions we put out, and then we have conversation about it. And it doesn't mean we always agree. We don't. There are people that are triggered by these questions, and we need to navigate that with them as a community in a way that is constructive and positive. Again, as always, I want you to know you are not alone in your estrangement. We are here with you. We are here for you, and we want you to be brave. We want you to know you can do this. You can navigate this. We have tools to help you. Listen to the other podcasts. Send your questions. All right. So take care and be good to yourself.